Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to Celebrity Natal Charts. Today, we are going to be looking at the natal chart of Ben Stiller, who is born in New York City, New York, United States, and so is every Sagittarius apparently. Birthday November 30th, 1965. Birth time 5:35 p.m. Birth time accuracy excellent. So that's good. Ben Stiller is the rising Gemini. He's also a comedian, which is very Gemini. Benjamin Edward Ben Stiller, born November 30th, 1965, is an American actor, comedian, voice actor, screenwriter, film director, and producer. He is the son of veteran comedians and actors Jerry Stiller and Anne Maria, Meara, Meara. After beginning his acting career with a play, Ben Stiller wrote several mockumentaries and was offered his own show entitled The Ben Stiller Show, which he produced and hosted for its entire run, 13 episodes. Through his career, he has received several awards and honors, including an Emmy Award, several MTV Movie Awards, and a Teen Choice Award. That's not a lot. And then, Teen Choice Award. And he is the Sagittarius with Rising Gemini. I remember him from the Meet the Parents movie and Zoolander. And Zoolander 2, they're great movies. I would mention those. Maybe those were what he won the Teen Choice Awards and the MTV Movie Awards for. But I also know he's in Madagascar. I think he is the lion in Madagascar. Yeah, because the zebra is Chris Rock. And I was talking about giraffes and zebras and stuff in the last video. About Tyra Banks, which you may not have heard yet. But he has the Rising Gemini, and the Rising Gemini is a life, somewhat ascending from the light into the darkness, like a really good childhood, and then it's like typical life, you know what I mean? But like very early successes, and then kind of like dwindling out a little bit. His birth year, it said, was 1965, which is the year of let's see, 1965, I believe is, if you know it, shout out the answer, is the snake. So he's a snake. A lot of people in this series have been snakes so far. So he was born in the year of the snake, and November 30th resonates with the Empress Tarot card. So that's like an MC, a master of ceremonies, a comedian, someone with a microphone in their hand. And it is associated because of 3, and Gemini being the third sign, his birth date is associated with his rising sign of Gemini. So that's the thing. I guess, it's like, well, it's not everybody's case, but it seems to be the case so far with these Sagittariuses and them all being born in New York. But his birth number is very Gemini. He has a rising Gemini. It means like he looks like a Gemini. His father was a comedian too. So, like I said, being a comedian, very Gemini. And that's because it's like Hermes, you know what I mean? Like Hermes in the Disney Hercules movie, he was also portrayed as a comedian, because he is Mercury and he is funny, who I believe was voiced by Billy Crystal, who is also a comedian. He is, he's actually kind of well known in his movies as being like a fitness person. Like whenever I think of Gemini, I actually think of like not necessarily Jane Fonda, but like a fitness instructor, like a TV jazzercise Pilates type person. And he plays he plays 2 of those roles in Heavyweights and, look at me knowing his whole discography, in Heavyweights and in the Dodgeball movie with Vince Vaughn. So he looks skinny, he is skinny, looks like an imp or an elf or like Hermes Trismegistus. And that is his rising, and his father's a comedian and his second house is in Cancer. So his biggest priority in life is to take care of his mother, to take care of his wife, and to nurture people and to nurture children or his children. And I don't think he's necessarily like Mr. Rogers. But just realizing, and I'm like, oh, a lot of Ben Stiller's work has been for kids, and maybe it's because he started his career so early, so he's like a forever child, which is also very Gemini as well. In his third house, he has Leo, so he sounds famous. Ben Stiller has a really like famous sounding name, and I say that the third house is a space that talks about your environment growing up. So he most likely, having a comedian father, is probably surrounded by a lot of glitz and glamour and Hollywood and famous people and popular people and that type of thing. In his fourth house, he has Virgo. So the third house and the fourth house in combination, it's always like, where do they grow up? And I guess the third house in Leo would talk to me more about like LA or Hawaii. Um, but there could have been trips, as he supposedly grew up in New York. When they say like people are from New York City, New York, like if they're not from upstate, they should really tell you like what borough. I'm assuming Manhattan, and that his life maybe was something like Seinfeld. I don't know. I mean, it could have been the Bronx, it could have been Staten Island. I don't know. But he's fourth house in Virgo, so this says to me that even though he's surrounded by a lot of famous people and celebrities, his childhood and his life very conservative. He has a Pluto and Uranus in his fourth house, so his connection to his mother, maybe because he's like, well, I don't want to make a bunch of like weird sexual humor or a lot of adult humor because I'm conservative and I'm still thinking about what my mama thinks about me. But also his mother has created knocked down a lot of boundaries for him. I'm sure his father did as well. And then we talk about Pluto. Pluto, it talks about death. It talks about dying. It talks about funerals. But to me, in this series, it's been talking to me more about like aesthetic and like being gothic and being like morose and melancholy. And he does sort of have this like New York, I wear black all the time. I'm too cool to be embarrassed. And then a lot of his humor is revolving around being feelings of embarrassment, especially with like Meet the Parents, right? And Meet the Parents, it's not even like really, it wasn't even really like Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, because Guess Who's Coming to Dinner was about race and knocking down boundaries and enlightening people. And I feel like from what I remember, Meet the Parents was just about how embarrassing it is to meet your potential spouse's parents, from what I remember. And he has a fifth house in Libra. So the fifth house, we're always saying the fifth house is a house of sexy distractions. It is the ego. And it's his relationship. So, he might allow his relationships to take him off course a lot. Like Gemini, they sort of do have this like copycat tendency. So it probably would really be difficult for him to date somebody that wasn't also a comedian or living a similar life, or they would cause a lot of obstacles and distractions for him. Okay. And he has a sixth house in Scorpio. So how does he get over his marriage, his weight, his legal issues? How does he circumnavigate that and heal himself from the times where he let his ego run rampant, across his life? Is with Scorpio, which is like magic or a connection to spirit, a connection to God. I believe he's Jewish, I want to say. So, perhaps like a connection to Kabbalah or Judaism is how he heals himself, praying to God essentially. Also like getting and seeking revenge. So, it's like if he feels like his ex-wife or ex-girlfriend was a huge distraction, he's like, I'm just going to get revenge and punch her in the face. He also has Neptune and Scorpio as well. So Neptune and Scorpio is a very powerful position, especially him being on television sometimes. And well, I mean, they put the movies on TV, So him being on television and in movies, really good at movies, which he is. And then so it'd be nice to know his parents' sign, but so I guess he said he did a play, but whoever got him into movies or pushed him onto the stage or opened the door to the theater, to allow him to do plays or movies or whatever it is. It's probably a Scorpio. He probably has a lot of Scorpio fans. If you meet someone who's like a diehard, obsessed Ben Stiller fan, they're probably a Scorpio. And then he has his seventh house in Sagittarius, because Sagittarius is the opposite sign to Gemini. And he has Mercury and his sun in Sagittarius. So he sounds like a Sagittarius. He has the soul of a Sagittarius. He's very competitive. He might be insufferable to speak to. I mean, it's like the Mercury in Sagittarius is very much like an actor. Like, I want more lines than you. I want more screen time than you. Don't even call it Zoolander, call it Ben Stiller Lander, and everybody else is like a background character and I'm the main character. And if he wasn't an actor, this would probably be like the worst energy to deal with in the world. So thank God he has a microphone in his hand. And then also it says that this is like actually like the seventh house in Sagittarius is actually a really good positioning, because it's like if you want a love affair that's going to last 20 years or 30 years without like a lot of strings attached, it would be best with his Sagittarius. A Sagittarius sun or rising would make a good match for him, especially with the sun and Mercury being there and opposite Gemini. So it's like they probably wouldn't die on a horse track trying to outrace each other. They would probably be like, hey, I figured out we're both not horses and we don't have to race against each other. Maybe we can team up and race against other people and be in a good, sturdy, stable relationship. And then he has eighth house in Capricorn. So his connection to God and his connection to spirituality and organized religion has a lot to do with business. And not to perpetuate any type of like racial stereotypes or whatever, but you know how they say like, oh, Jews run Hollywood. Which is true, maybe not true. I don't know. I'm not in Hollywood. I'm not involved. Don't know. None of my business. But it's like his connection to a synagogue or to a church may solely be for the business connections that come out of it, which a lot of people do with Catholicism. People do it with baptism, with like Baptist churches or any church. You're like, oh, I need friends. Every black person over 30 is like, I need to get into church so I can find me a woman, and I'm sure white people too. It's like, how do you find good people that are life-affirming and are wealthy and aren't evil and insidious? Go to the church or synagogue, whatever it may be. Or how do you get away from like creepy devil-worshipping Illuminati people? Like, oh, go to the church, which they may be in there too. But he also has Mars, I want to say, and Venus in Capricorn as well. So he's very business-minded. He acts like a so I said, like, I don't know what you guys know about Capricorns. I always think of Capricorns as always wearing black and like being from New York and enjoying the cold weather. So even though he has this Gemini life that he's living, even though he has this warmth and gaiety, or I use the F word when it comes to Sagittarius. And I use the F word when it comes to Sagittarius because they are the King of Wands. They are the Page of Batons. They are the Knight of Candles. They are the Ten of Wands in the tarot deck. And, you can see those as candles, as cigarettes, or as the English would say, a bunch of faggots, right? So I use the F word. Like with Pisces, I use the G word. I'm like, Pisces, very gay, very happy. Sagittarius, very competitive, very annoying. Faggot king. And then, because it's just like, you're constantly trying to outdo people. It's like, calm down, sit down. Like, you can't sing the hook and the chorus and the verse and the bass line, because when it comes to your time to sing, you'll be all out of breath, Sagittarius. So it's better to just sing your part. But with the Venus and Mars and Capricorn, he's like, what is it? For the love of money. I was watching some episode of The Jeffersons, and someone was screaming at George Jefferson, like, what's more important, your business or your marriage? And he's like, don't ask me tough questions. So I think like if you ask him that question, he's like business. Like, that's not even a tough question. What are you talking about? You sound drunk. My marriage, my business. So he's in love with the business. He's in love with show business. He acts like a show business person. I mean, his father was in show business. He probably attracts a lot of Capricorns. He probably has learned a lot of things from Capricorns. He has the ninth house in Aquarius, so I think that his best bet as far as like love would go is Sagittarius, obviously. But when it comes to marriage, long distance, like travel companion, um, long term love affair, like what do you call it? Like Ross and Rachel? You know what I mean? Like I don't know what you call that. Like will they, won't they relationships? I see that like Aquarius, if he had struggles, going to college or achieving higher education, an Aquarius person like at a bank or at the school would help him out. If not, like charity, right? So if you are not Ben Stiller and you have a rising Gemini and you're like 18 or 19 years old and you're thinking about going to college and there isn't a lot of finances for you to do that, a really good thing to do would be turning to a Aquarius that you know, or turning to a charity that would help someone like you, whether if that's like a charity angled towards like African Americans, Jewish Americans, Asian Americans, like it doesn't necessarily have to revolve around race. You could be looking for like a comedian scholarship or some type of thing like that. And in his 10th house of his career, reputation, and destiny, he has Pisces. And I'm like such a Pisces fanboy that I'm like, oh, if I like these people, they have to have some type of like really strong placement in Pisces because Pisces is the best. Which he has Chiron, Saturn, and his moon. So in the Tyra Banks video, I was talking about how myself as a moon in Pisces, it's like if I'm happy, I start crying. If I'm angry, I start crying. Hungry, like a baby almost, like hungry, sad, drunk, all feelings turn back to crying or displays of sadness that might actually be joy. And the moon in Pisces, stereotypically to me, is a person that goes by a lot of different names and aliases, which he probably does. I mean, I'm sure Ben Stiller does not use his name, Ben Zoolander Stiller, when he goes to Starbucks. He's probably like, oh, my name is Benjamin, or my name is Timothy, and then some people probably know him better by the names of the characters in the movies that they love, especially if he has a bunch of like Scorpio obsessed super fans. They're probably like, hey, Jerry Stiller's kid. Hey, Zoolander. Hey, Manny. I'm really pretending like I'm not a Ben Stiller fan, but I know all this. I think his name is Manny the Lion, and Zootopia. What is that? Madagascar. And Sacha Baron Cohen is in Madagascar, and I think Vivica Fox is in Madagascar, and so is Ross from Friends. Ross and Rachel. Cool. And then Rachel is an Aquarius, and she's a famous friend. She's famous for being on Friends. Aquarius is a sign of friendship. Astrology is real. So he has a 10,000 Pisces, where he also has his moon, Chiron, and Saturn. So Pisces is also a sign of a connection to God and spirituality, which is a limitation for him. So maybe, he goes to church and to synagogue and he doesn't really believe in God so much. But maybe there are things that he does and he says that connects people to God. Like he helps people see God in a way that he cannot see himself. So maybe there's like huge spiritual messages in Madagascar, and I think there's a lot about Judaism in Meet the Parents. I want to say it's been like 10 years since I've seen the movie. But he has limitations. Or it's like Saturn and Chiron being in Pisces sounds like really rough. Like it just sounds like so many like just literal like boarded up walls. But maybe his reputation is that he's very insular, and very hurt and very damaged. Who knows? He is a celebrity. But then Mr. Stiller, he has the 11th house in Aries. So he's probably, yeah, he probably has like a lot of diva moments and gets really angry with his friends. Or like, it's like, how do you feel so comfortable to yell at me in this way, Mr. Stiller? And he's like, I'm famous. Like, I'm Jerry Stiller's son, and you're treating me this way. Aries in the 11th house, friends with the government. And I was actually saying because of all this Capricorn in his chart and the areas and organization, like, areas of the sign of the Emperor, stability and organization, that doing the Capricorn celebrity natal chart series was so difficult for me because I kept losing track of like what rising sign I've already done because I accidentally did 13 videos and did the Capricorn rising Leo twice, and I was like, all you got to do is write down the names and the thing and put it in your notes and check off what you've done, and you won't have to feel so overwhelmed. And that's what I was doing before I did this video. So his best friend is organization. And organizations, whether it's government organizations or religious organizations, which I think like him and James Hong being snakes, and I was like, oh, James Hong, he gets a lot of help from people that look like him that look Chinese, and there's a lot of times where like the Pokemon movie, I'm like, oh, it's a mixed race boy star of the movie. I'll go watch the mixed race boy movie, opposed to Spider-Man, which is like little British boy. And I want to talk about Tom Holland because I feel like that's like super culture, like cultural appropriation, spiritual appropriation. Like, I'm like, I don't necessarily need Spider-Man to be black, but I do need him to be from New York. Like, that kind of sucks. And I know that Tom Green or whoever the first Spider-Man was, what the hell was his name? Tobey Maguire. I know he probably wasn't from New York either, but I'm like, there's like a little New Yorker who like really needs an opportunity for fame and to be in a movie. And it's like, as an African American, you see it all the time where it's like, oh, we can't cast 50 Cent in a movie. We can't use an actual American black man. They're bad. We need like we need Idris Elba or a fancy black man with a British accent from Africa. Those are the good black people. And it sort of translates into white people too, especially being from New York. It's like, oh, we can't have a dirty old kid from the Bronx. Like, we need fancy, what is it, tea and biscuits, Tom Holland from England, and to class up the joint or something. I don't know. I have literally, screw these natal charts. I'm going to make like 6 videos about Spider-Man. And then in his 12th house, Mr. Stiller has Taurus. I don't remember, but someone else I was doing about the 12th house in Taurus, and it's kind of like so heavyweights, like overweight people, gluttonous people, people who are ostentatious and not humble make him miserable. Maybe it has to do something with Judaism and the prophet Elijah. Don't really know that much about Judaism or anything really, but like diet culture, I think that's a big thing with him. Like, it seems like a theme, at least in 2 movies that I know of. And then also maybe he's a city boy, like he's a real city mouse, like being in the country makes him miserable. Being a brown country folk make him miserable. He is conservative, like the Virgo and the Capricorn placements and the planets. But maybe he would prefer to be more like a freak. And like Gemini, like that guy, Ben Shapiro, Benny Drama, Benny Comedy, or whatever, that guy that did those, really good, really funny astrology videos, and how they have the Gemini being, I guess, bipolar. But I don't like to believe that Gemini is bipolar. But they might be 2 people. You know what I mean? They might like physically be 2 people, mixed into one. Where it's like he wants to be Brittany Taylor from Daria, but then also wants to be Daria or Jane. If you don't get that reference, like he wants to be the blonde cheerleader, but also like the freaky gothic outcast at the same time. Like he wants it all. And that's Ben Stiller. So, I mean, astrology is real. November 30th, 30 is a Gemini tarot card and a Gemini number. He has a rising Gemini. So thank you so much for listening, liking, sharing, and subscribing to this video. Please share this video with your favorite Sagittarius rising Gemini so that you can call them the F word on the low. And, but then also, send it to a friend who doesn't believe in astrology and be like, hey, so says this faggot, Ben Stiller's a super Gemini. I don't even know if can you say the F? Cigarette. I mean, British cigarette. Don't cancel me. I have Mercury in Aries. I like to talk that way. If you don't like it, get out of my face. Oh, and then I guess also want to talk about, thank you for sharing, liking, subscribing, PPS. He also has his midheaven in Pisces. So it's like a lot of these people that I'm doing readings for that are, essentially, I would say, like devil worshippers in the sense that they kind of like portray toxic behaviors. Like I just did Tyra Banks' video, or toxic behaviors or toxic lifestyles. And, maybe that like I know him by so many different names, Moon and Pisces. Tony Perkins from Heavyweights. We might like abs, we might like pectorals and biceps. Um, but if you don't have those things, you shouldn't feel bad or worthless or whatever it is. And I think I saw it with Christina Aguilera because Christina Aguilera obviously wants to sing in a black church somewhere. Like, let's stop being PC. Like, she wants to be a gospel singer. Justin Timberlake wants to be a gospel singer. And I keep receiving this message from this person that I used to go to high school with, and he's like, "White people need the Holy Ghost too." And I'm like, "Yeah, I feel that. I feel that bad." I'm like listening to Taylor Swift's music, and I'm like, "Girl, she might be from the Church of Satan because like, where is the soul? Like, where is the like, where is that? I love that." So I feel like Ben Stiller, for whatever reason, he might make a series where he's reading the Torah, and in the way that you're supposed to read the Torah with like jokes and accents, like how your mother would do, reading a bedtime story, like giving God a voice and speaking from the voice of God. And I think that's his. And I've never had a Seder with Ben Stiller. He might do this already. He might be the best. I guess like if you're at a Seder, or, I was talking about the prophet Elijah or any type of Jewish event, and they're reading from the Torah, and it's like, okay, well, we got Uncle Ned, and we got Aunt Susan. Hey, Ben Stiller, the rising Gemini, whose father was a comedian, do you want to read for this aloud in front of everybody from this book for everyone? Like, please don't be shy, Like, I think if I'm sitting at my family reunion and like Ben Stiller's there, I'm like, hey, we're gonna read something, Ben. Could you read it? You're sort of like a professional reader. You write plays, and you were in plays, and you're in a million movies. So you might be really good at reading the Torah, and he might be celebrated in his family for doing that. And then, like I said, thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing. Thank you for listening to this video. You can send this video to your favorite Sagittarius rising Gemini and tell them how great they are. If you have a kid who is a Sagittarius and is not upset by vulgarities that I spew. I also want to say, though, vulgarities that I spew, you can send this video and be like, hey, little Timmy, you might feel down and out right now, but you are a Sagittarius with rising Gemini. Your life will be similar to Ben Stiller's, and you will be in the Madagascar movies, and you will be Tony the Tiger. But I also think it's like very shady, not shady, but like creepy, that astro charts would be like, screw Madagascar, screw Meet the Parents, screw Zoolander. But he did have the Ben Stiller show, which he produced and hosted for his entire run of 13 episodes. Like, wish death on somebody else, you little creep. you know? So there's that. Watch out for that. Yes. And thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.